We conduct the roll call, please.
Let's see. Director Bennett,
Present.
Director Jenkins. I have not heard from Director Jenkins at this time.
Okay.
Director Young,
Present.
Vice President Garcia,
Present.
Vice President Moore.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. All right. We got pledge of allegiance, Miss Angie?
Please join me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
I'll
Second.
Okay.
Director Bennett,
Yes.
Director Jenkins is absent. So Director Young,
Yes.
Vice President Garcia,
Yes.
and President Moore.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Public participation. Public comment is open. Have any public comments been received?
No, President Moore, we've not received any public comment, and there is no one online at this time either.
Seeing none, public comment is closed. All right, business matters. Board policies.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just have one item tonight, the Board Policies and Procedures Manual update. And just as a little recap, the board last met on this last fall, October 27th, actually. We reviewed our current manual, identified areas for desired change and improvements, and staff was directed to work with Policy Committee on development of alternatives for such changes. Some of those topics that we discussed then and that we will be going over tonight include sections involving executive committee and officers of the board, organizational meeting, terms of the president, certain training, conferences, and other events pre-approved for compensation, other clarifications and updates, and meeting and travel expense and approval processes. So as directed, staff has worked with Policy Committee actually every month ever since the last workshop and done a lot of great work. And I think we've certainly reached a point where we can check in on progress and receive additional board directions. There's more to do beyond today. This is an iterative process. For example, today we're going to be looking at potential changes to executive committee. And if the board directs such changes, we'll have to go back to the manual. It's probably mentioned 100 times or something in there. Go back and make all those smaller changes depending on that one board direction. Ultimately, a final red line version of the existing policy will be brought forward to the full board for adoption at some point in the near future. And I also wanted to mention that, you know, it seems like every time we met and went through the manual and potential improvements, we would find more things that we thought could be better. And even recently, we brought more of these potential improvements to the attention of the Policy Committee. Actually, just last month's Policy Committee meeting, more ideas related to board travel, per diem, budgeting, reporting. So more to be done in this area. At that committee meeting, the committee indicated that they would want to address these issues, and the committee asked that staff bring back data and potential alternatives for the committee to review and refine, and ultimately those will be brought back to a future workshop like the one today. And we can continue working on that. So this follows the initial board direction for staff to work with committee to develop a range of alternatives for potential changes and improvements to the board policy manual. So while everything is not 100% ready to go today, we do have a lot of ground to cover today, about 20 slides. So that'll be a really strong start. And some additional direction from the board and comments would be useful as we continue this process and continue meeting with Policy Committee. Our next meeting's coming up next Tuesday, in fact. So with that, Paula has prepared a PowerPoint to lead us in our discussion today. Any thoughts, comments, questions before we get started on that?
If I could just add in, I just want to thank the staff for their wonderful hard work. Paul, John, the whole team. As John mentioned, we've been meeting every month. In fact, there were sometimes we were meeting every week, just trying to get all this ready to come back to the board. And yes, there is one in particular issue which was brought to our attention, which we're meeting about next week, but I'm pleased to say we got most of it here today. So it's not as much, I think, that will be coming back later, but yeah, there is one issue that we still need to flesh out. But hopefully if there's no drastic changes tonight, most of it we can hopefully get sewn up today, is at least my hope from the committee.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah.
Will you get started? All right.
Get to it? All right.
Good afternoon, President Moore and Board of Directors. Before we get started, I also have a few words to say. I also wanted to thank Policy Committee and really everyone up on the dais for all the work we've done for this item. There's been lots of meetings and lots of discussions to get us to this point. I will be taking us through the PowerPoint, which you have all already seen before. There have been a couple of notes added here or there, but no major changes. As we go through, our goal is if we can have the board make selections for each of the recommended options, then I will use that when finalizing the red line document to bring back to you guys. As it was mentioned, there are a few sections that need further discussion with Policy Committee before a recommendation is brought back to the full board, but we can talk about more that when we get to those sections. I also want to mention the options we will go through are options that the Policy Committee put together, as well as additional options that we have heard from all of you and other options that we came up with along the way. But in no way are those definitive or the only options. If anyone wants to propose something additional to what you see on these slides and the board decides to take it in that direction, then that is perfectly fine.
Okay.
I did want to add, it's in the write-up, but just so make sure everybody knows, we did reach out to BBK on a number of occasions, and Jeff actually joined us for a couple of meetings just to clarify get some legal thoughts on some of these issues.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that he made himself available. So
All right, here we go.
Let's go.
We'll start off with section 3. This is authority that relates to general manager, chief financial officer. I hope you guys could see that well on your screen. So I'll walk you through what the options are specifically talking about. It's usually whatever is highlighted in red. So
Okay.
here we have the board shall appoint the general manager, chief financial officer, and board secretary. We are recommending we strike out the chief financial officer because the CFO no longer reports to the board effective last year. So if you are all in agreement with that, I'm not sure the best way to get all our agreement.
Just make a note.
Okay.
So
So I'll just say any comments or objections, and then maybe you guys can chime in if you guys don't agree with that.
And
Does
then I
that
can
sound-
make a note we can either say for the record, either myself or Henry can, and then we can also have either a note for the record, and we'll just put it in the minutes.
Okay. Okay. And there's 20 slides, right?
I don't know. Don't quote John on that.
So-
I'm not sure.
So just as a word of caution, let's not preamble.
21.
Let's give our answers and no support. That's it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. So only say if we disagree?
Well, I
Yes.
want to make sure we have a method of, I don't think we need to take a vote for each of these, so I just want to,
we want to try to reach a consensus,
Yeah.
yes.
clear consensus for staff.
Okay, so why don't we just say which letter we want and see if it's,
Well, again, we can do that, but I think that what they're asking for is just a clear consensus so they know what to do moving forward.
And I just want to clarify that tonight you're just providing
Yeah.
direction to staff to bring back
Yeah.
a red line. So there's no action, there's no motions or any seconds or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And this
sounds like-
this one was a pretty simple one because we've
Yes.
already kind of made this change administratively. We just need
Yeah.
to catch up in our policy. So the committee was in favor of option A.
I'm in agreement
Okay.
with A.
Okay. Seems like we all agree, so I will move on.
Yep.
4.2, the board's relationship with the general manager. Here we have just a slight change. The general manager shall notify instead of advise the board of directors when he or she is out of the office. So if you look at that second column, this column is really asking who shall be notified. The board of directors would be option A, as no change. The president or president.
I agree with A.
So keeping it as board of directors.
Correct. I agree with the committee recommendation, A.
Okay. Your mic.
I'm sorry. I support B,
Just the president.
Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. President. What do you think?
Ah. Look.
So would that mean that if the president gets notified, then the president tells the board of directors, the board secretary to send an email?
I'm just trying to reach that out. So if you get it, if he sends it to the president,
I think we all
President.
should still know.
yeah, we should still forward it to the.
I don't need to be notified when
If it's more.
general manager's out.
I would like to get notified, so should we just do C? But then others want to get notified. I'm speaking for others, so I'm going to just say I would like to get notified.
I'm not sure. I know that Dan and I both supported it, keeping it as the board of directors. I'm not sure where he is. He must have got held up at the hospital. I know he would have otherwise probably be here, knowing him.
Yeah, it was a committee
Yeah,
recommendation.
we were pretty
Yeah.
in agreement on that
Okay.
one.
For the whole board? That's what we're saying.
It would be,
At least
keep
it
it the whole
seems like
board.
a consensus at the moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Support that.
Okay, so I'm noting A, no change. Keep it, board of directors. The last column is referring to the text in red when they are out of the office for an extended period of time. So what is the time frame for this notification? When they're, A, leave it just as an extended period of time. When they're out for one or more work days. When they're, C, when they're out one or more consecutive business days or more. 2 or more consecutive business days, D, or E, 3 or more consecutive business days.
And if I could just add that as a committee, we we really bounced around between D and E, but I think either one to the committee would have been fine. But we just felt that any single day was probably not necessary in to us, but certainly would love to hear others' opinions on that. But yeah, we just felt that, if you're taking a day off, we don't necessarily always need to know that. But if you're going to be off multiple days consecutively, then it's a different story. But love to hear everyone else's thoughts.
Well, go ahead.
I think after 2 days, the president should be notified.
It was my opinion that it was B, because if the general manager is out, it would just be courtesy to let us know who's in charge for the day. Because one day can turn into 2 days, or we don't know what happens in one day. It's just out of courtesy to who's in charge when you're not in the office.
I would say the assistant general manager.
What if she's not in, and they're both out at an event in Sacramento? Who's in charge?
I can't think of too many times where there hasn't been one of the two of them here.
I can think of several times where they've gone to conferences together.
Yeah.
And again,
And
it's just,
typically speaking, there's always a designee, correct, John, if that's the case?
I mean, if we're at an event, it's almost like we're still working. If there's a point where perhaps me, and I guess there was a time recently where both Linda and myself were out on a kind of a normal work day, and we did assign, Jose to be kind of the lead in our absence.
So there's a designee if that scenario were to ever come up.
Yeah.
well, I didn't know about that date. So again, I think it's just courtesy. Unless the general manager feels that he doesn't need to notify when he's not in. I mean,
Yeah, just for clarity, I'm good with any of these options. I'll email every board member every day, if desired.
no, that's not the desire. The
yeah.
desire is just,
But when I'm out for, I feel like if I'm out for just a normal work day, like I'm normally not here on Fridays, just for clarity. So if it's not a holiday and I'm not here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, I'm obviously totally fine with notifying all of the board, maybe less Esteban, but all of the board when I'm out for one of those kind of 4 normal work days. It's
I'm from an environment.
It's easy enough for me either way.
Heck yeah, I'm from an environment where, you're managing things. Your manager, your director, whatever. And it's just, to me, it's just natural. You would, if you're going to be out a certain amount of time, you would automatically do something to communicate it. I think really myself, because I've been in that position before. I mean, I didn't have to, but whoever this is next. If you need something, that person. I don't think, and if it goes an extended amount of time, same thing. And so I think what you're saying is you do that anyway, or you're gonna be doing that anyway. I just think that to memorialize it in that way.
Yeah, what's the threshold?
I don't know. We gotta allow a little room for, I don't know, just basic business practices that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not basic for everybody else. That's basic for me, because we don't want constraints like that. But whatever you need to do, just make sure you convey it. That's all. And I think you do that anyway. I mean, for the most part, there's been a couple of times where you probably haven't, but I think that when you're out, just let us know you're out and who's going to be working. Usually Linda's here. And then sometimes we just assume. So I'm not going to say that hasn't happened either. But we don't want to leave it to where we assume and something happens and she's not. So
so
is that fair? And we could think about it.
okay.
But
So it sounds like I'm hearing B would satisfy everybody. It would be more often than perhaps the committee would recommend, but more often is, I think, would satisfy all of the board, certainly.
well, we're hoping that you're taking time off. And when you do, you just let us, I would like to know who's in charge. That's all it is. It's just
Yeah.
a courtesy.
Am I hearing kind of B would be the most acceptable to the board?
I mean,
Or
to
is that-
me, I would think it's beyond at least 2 myself, just because, again, you could take one day off. Maybe you went to the dentist and you're like, you know what, they did a bit more work than I would have liked. I'm just not going to come in today. Well, do you need to notify us for that? But if you're going to take more than one consecutive day in a row, now we're talking about a different situation. So I would see it more as beyond a single day, because any number of things can come up for you to miss a single day. And that's not the end of the world. We know that for all intents and purposes, Linda or somebody else is going to be here to help us if we need something. We call the secretary, they get us in contact with whoever's here and who's in charge. But to me, I would think it's, when you talk about an extended period of time, to me, that's more than just a single day. That's just my feelings on it.
I still, if my opinion is that when the manager is out, we should know when someone's not in. That's just my opinion.
If we were to, do you like one of these options? A through E? I'm hearing,
I
I guess,
recommend
B.
B. I recommend B.
Okay.
I recommend D.
Yeah, I would go with D myself.
Okay.
I don't know.
So we're at a standstill, so
Little
I
bit.
guess.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not, so let's say we went with D. I'm not against emailing other board members separately if that is their desire.
Okay.
Yeah, we may have to circle back on this one.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So
Do
then
you
there's
guys
no
want-
clear direction, there's no preference on any of those?
I heard 2 Ds and 1 B. If President Moore would like to chime in, or we could come back to it.
We can come back to it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, maybe refine that a little bit next week, perhaps.
Yeah, I'll flag this one. We could come back to it.
That was our
Fine.
toughest one so far.
Okay, section 8.2 for board direction. This is a new proposed section to outline a procedure for canceling a regular board meeting. This came about recently when we had a regular board meeting. However, there was nothing really on the agenda, so we looked to the policies to see what the procedure is for canceling a board meeting, and there was none. So we have 2 options. I'm gonna start with option B. To include the text, a board meeting may be canceled with the approval of the majority of the board based on a poll taken by the general manager, board secretary, or their designee. Or option A, no change, which essentially means don't include this language in the policy. Committee recommended A because their recommendation was to keep this mainly as an internal standard operating procedure that does not need to be included in the policy.
Correct, and if I could just chime in, the reason we kind of recommended going in that direction is that we don't know if this really needs to be codified here, because it's more about what does staff do in this particular situation, and I actually think staff handled it very well and very appropriately. They had a discussion with the officers and then eventually emailed the rest of the board, so I think it was handled well. We just didn't feel that it needed to be in the board policies itself, that it's more of an internal, what do we do kind of a situation, more of a standard operating procedure for the crew here to just know that if we had a situation like that again where we don't have really any business, that they would then just have an internal process which they could then follow. So I mean, we can add it if that's what the board wishes, but we just felt that this was more of an internal process and not necessarily something that we needed in the board policies and procedures, which generally is more directed at the board members and the board itself and not so much staff. Because really this is a staff process, is the way we kind of looked at it.
So let me chime in on this one. It seems like recently, when the board secretary has concerns over lack of information on a agenda item, she asks all of us on the dais if it's okay to change or cancel the board meeting. And we're all aware of it. And it seems like that's been the norm, that we all know about whether we're going to cancel it, and we all are being asked at the same time.
Well, I think the scenario you're describing is if she were to bring something up in a board meeting that we're already having. This, I think, is more dealing with the situation that we had where we weren't in a board meeting and they're looking ahead at the upcoming meeting like, hey, we don't really have anything. What do we do? Was more of this particular scenario. And yeah, so, I mean, like, I know what you're saying, but I think this is more addressing a different scenario than that.
Yeah, and I think because Because if it's not outlined in the board policies, then there will be questions in the future if it arises where, for example, if I want a board meeting or a special meeting, what's the process going to be?
Well, special meetings, there's already a section for that. It's just more of a question of staff was looking, should we have a procedure by which staff can have guidance on how do we go about canceling a meeting if there's a lack of items? And again, we felt that that would maybe make more sense as an internal standard operating procedure for the staff, since it's really guiding the staff side of it. Again, we would still get roped in as a part of that. And again, I think staff handled that particular situation very well by, again, first going to the officers and then eventually emailing the rest of us, making sure we were all fine with canceling it. But it was really more of a question of, should it really be part of this body of policies or something internal? And since it was more to, I think, give guidance to staff, we felt that it maybe a standard operating procedure internally might make more sense.
Is there anything memorialized anywhere else in the policies about it or no?
Well, as far as canceling a meeting in this type of a situation, no.
Okay.
Our policies as it is now just describes the types of meetings
Okay.
and how those can be derived, but it really doesn't talk about canceling, because typically we seldom cancel meeting.
Are there any reference for the other policies, for the ones, for the internal process? Is there a policy? Just a question.
I mean, I don't know that we have anything written down yet, but we're,
Or canceling,
Yeah.
we don't have anything internal. Typically, you know, we're more concerned with how do you call a board meeting.
Yeah.
So this, it would be helpful to have, but not quite necessary because, we try to communicate with everybody either way when
Yeah.
something happens, like if there's
Yeah.
some type of conflict.
Yeah.
So this is just, it would be helpful, but not strictly necessary.
Yeah, because I mean, in some cases, in some areas and things of compliance and stuff, we do things, right? But they always say, you do things, but you need to have something that says what you do. So
Exactly,
if
and
that's
that's
something that we need to do, and we're doing it. Let's have it where it's memorialized so we all know it's compliant. That's all.
If I could,
Yeah.
so the Brown Act only provides noticing requirements for a regular meeting, a special meeting, or an emergency meeting. There's no provisions in the Brown Act that you need to notify the public that the meeting's been canceled, say 24, 72 hours before. The usual process is just providing a notice to the public that the meeting has been canceled. So there's
Okay.
no provisions or anything that the board needs to adhere to when canceling a meeting.
Well, now if I could just also clarify, the committee is not opposed to the idea of having a process or a procedure. We just felt that it didn't necessarily need to be a part of this particular body of procedures and policies, that it's more of something that should be developed internally, because to your point, President Moore, it's good to know, okay, if scenario X happens, what is our process? You know, and so we definitely support that, but we just work like, okay, is it really something which should be a part of this document, or could it be more appropriately maybe handled as an internal SOP?
Okay. 'Cause right now, it's not anywhere, right? So.
No, we don't
I
have
like-
anything.
Let's do I support the internal.
Internal.
Yeah, I do.
Director Bennett?
Uh,
So we have a majority for A, no change. We will keep this internal. Section 9.1, types of board meetings. So the edits here we are recommending is removing the time that is specified for our regular board meetings and simply referring to the ordinance. This is just in case recently, you know, we had an item possibly changing the time. If that ever were to come back, that would be done by ordinance, so we would look to the ordinance, reference the ordinance, and we would not need to update the time here specifically. So it's just replacing that language to point to the ordinance that will set our time. So committee recommended incorporating the edits.
I agree with the committee recommendations.
I agree also.
I agree. I agree as well.
Thank you. Nine point four, standing committee meetings. The highlighted text, the committee chairperson shall be appointed by the president of the board with the consent of the full board of directors. We are recommending we update this language to match our current practice. So currently, when we have new committee members at the first meeting of said committee, you will pick a chairperson among yourselves instead of having the president appoint it for you. So we are recommending to update that to the committee shall appoint a chairperson at their first committee meeting following a new committee appointments. If the committee cannot reach a decision of the appointment of a chairperson, then the president of the board will make that appointment. And we are also recommending including that we have alternates for committees.
Okay.
So the committee recommended incorporating those edits. Any comments, questions?
I agree with the committee recommendation.
I agree.
I also.
Thank you. Section 9.5, organizational meeting. So the question here is whether we want to change the frequency of our organizational meetings to select a president, vice president, as well as standing committee members. Currently, it is biannual organizational meetings. So the options are no change, remain biannual organizational meetings, or change to annual reorganizational meetings every December. Committee recommended A, keeping biannual organization.
I agree with committee recommendation.
I also agree.
I agree.
Thank you. Last column, we are including some just adding a little bit of clarifying language that organizational meetings will occur at the first regular meeting in December or the next available meeting after certification of the election results, or as desired at any time by the majority of the board. Committee recommended incorporating the edits.
Yeah, and that was just in part because we did actually have our first meeting fall on December 1st, and they hadn't yet certified the election one time, so it did actually force us to have it at the second meeting in December. Typically, it's the first, but we just wanted to have that caveat in there in case.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you. Section 15, selection of the president and vice president. So we are going to skip option A because this section was kind of reflected in two sections, talking about the term of when you reorganize. So we are going to, actually, we're not going to skip A. We are going to go with A because you guys just chose to do biannual, so we have 2-year terms. The only thing we're adding is this sentence: the board may have an election of officers at any time they so choose, and that's just to give you the clarity written in here that you can do so at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Do we agree? Yes. Yes. Thank you. More on section 15. So at some point during our discussions, it was mentioned the possibility of adding term limits for the president. So we have a couple options here. Option A, setting a 2 consecutive years limit. Or option B, no change, which essentially means we are not going to add term limits for the president.
Yeah, so we just recommended it, just letting the board make that determination
Okay.
as it sees fit.
Yeah, so committee recommended B. Do we agree or do we have some thoughts?
I just have a question, because the more I read it, so proposal to add 2 consecutive year terms limits for president, add a 2 consecutive year term.
Yeah,
So it's every 2 years the president stands? Is that what it means?
so
Well,
currently
no,
the,
but that was what was requested for us to consider. We actually took option B, which is to keep it mute in the policy so that it can be whatever the board so chooses.
so if
Yeah.
if the board wanted to actually set a term limit, we would need to actually clarify whether it's 2 consecutive years, meaning they could serve only 2 years and then they switch, or 2 consecutive terms, which means they would serve 2 terms, so 4 years, and then they switch.
What does it say right now?
Right now, the option A is such term shall be limited to years, consecutive years. So that's the same as 1 term.
No, but I think to clarify her question, our current policy doesn't set any limits.
Correct. Yes.
The
Yes.
this proposal was one of the ones that was sent to us that we needed to consider, was this idea of term limits, and the committee said, nope, leave that to the board to make at that time. If they want to continue with the current leadership, they can. If they want to make a change at any time, they can. So we opted to just keep it mute on term limits.
So then, if I'm understanding correctly, the board policy is an annual visit
Biannual.
every 2 years?
Well, there's
Yes.
an organizational meeting every 2 years in conjunction with the election. Now, board can elect new officers at any time. I mean, that can be agendized at any meeting. And as long as you have 3 votes, you can make any change that you want.
Okay.
We're just saying we should just keep it mute because, one, I personally don't like the idea of trying to limit the decision-making ability of a future board. So I say just let that board decide whenever they get to that point, because I think part of it too is that the particular section we're talking about is tied into that discussion of an organizational meeting, which is a very specific thing tied to the start of a new term and new elected people potentially starting. That's also why we said not to have a organizational meeting necessarily every year, but again, board can make up its mind at any time to change its leadership. That's always been the case, and we think that just leave it with the board to decide.
Okay, so I'm going to go with committee recommendations.
I'll support that.
Okay, so B, thank you. Section 16.4, Executive Committee. So we have a couple options here. There was a lot of discussion on Executive Committee. First option is no change, keep Executive Committee language as is. Option B is to eliminate Executive Committee completely and all references to. Or option C is to redefine Executive Committee to officers meeting with the general manager. I just a note that if we were to go with A, keeping Executive Committee as it should be, as it is, it should be treated as a standing committee per our legal legal opinion. It would be treated as a standing committee with agenda, minute, Brown Act requirements. If we go with option C, the new proposed text, which I'll show you in the next slide, we would be moving away from those requirements. So just something to keep in mind as you read the text.
And if I could just add too, I know that we have Henry here tonight, but I do want to thank Jeff, because again, we met several times, particularly to talk about this option C that the committee is recommending, and trying to find a middle ground between having some kind of version of the officers at least having regular interactions with the general manager, but also trying to find a bridge, a path that addressed some of the concerns that were previously raised both by legal and other board members. But I do want to thank Jeff for all his help on this one in particular.
Yeah.
So if you read the first column, I'm going to give you a minute to read that text in full. That is the new proposal for what is currently executive committee.
Yeah.
So don't worry about the text in red for now. First, let's look at that as a whole.
Mhm.
Yeah, essentially all of that is new text that's proposed
Correct.
with some duplication.
Well, the current section that's executive committee would basically be deleted in whole and potentially replaced with this if we go with option C.
I have one thing. Yeah, I support the recommendation.
President Moore, can you talk into the mic,
I support
please?
the recommendation because currently we really had nothing going on with that as far as reportable structure, and haven't for a while. So I like that. Secondly, I would like to have a caveat here under D, the options on the other side of as needed as well. So if we need to meet more than that, we can do that.
Okay.
Make sense?
So before, we will come back to that thought
Okay.
in just a moment.
Okay.
So you are in support of this new text. So I'm going to go back a slide.
Okay.
That is essentially C. Do we have agreement?
I agree with committee recommendation to renaming it.
Okay. So C. So now we can take a look at that text in red. So now the question is, what is the meeting frequency for this? I have to get used to the new name. Officers
Officers of
meeting
what?
with the general manager.
Correct.
So what is the meeting frequency? No change is referring to the text in red. So they shall meet with the general manager at least twice a month. They shall meet with the general manager at least once a month is B. C, they shall meet with the general manager at least once every 2 months. D, they may meet with the general manager up to twice a month. And did you have a new proposal, President Moore?
Yeah, E, as needed.
May meet with the general manager as needed.
Yes. Yeah, there's been times we have to do that.
Well, but can I ask a question, President Moore? So are you just saying that you want more flexibility to meet additionally, or you just want to delete that whole section and red just as needed?
No, I think we should do that, what's the recommendation,
Uh-huh.
but if we need to meet with them.
Okay, because I'll just point out that recommendation from the committee was A, shall meet at least twice a month. It doesn't preclude you from meeting more if needed. Now, we can add as needed if that would help. But I don't think the current proposed language would preclude if you need to have a third meeting, for example.
Mhm.
But we can add to it
Yeah,
if that would make sense.
I prefer that.
Okay. I mean, I'm supportive of that, or as
Okay.
needed, or additionally as needed, or however we want to phrase it.
So
Yeah.
at least twice a month and as otherwise needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall meet with the general manager at least twice a month and as otherwise needed.
Yes.
Do we have agreement for that?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I do have a note here that, so we will have to go back into the policies and find all the references to executive committee
Oh, yeah.
and update that. And depending, let me go to the next slide. 12.2 board censorship policy procedure. We had talked about this at policy committee, but it is a very lengthy section, which
We can bring it back. Yeah.
I think I was going to propose taking it back to policy committee
We can do that.
because I think we need to redefine this a little bit more before the whole board can take
Okay.
action on this or make a recommendation.
What is the refinement?
So right here, I just have a little paragraph, which is really just the intro paragraph to this whole section. It is pretty thorough in outlining the process. So I would just like to have a chance to look at it a little bit closely now that we have direction on what we're doing with executive committee.
Well, and I can maybe add in to help clarify. So our censorship policies are pretty lengthy. It's very, very well constructed, but right now a lot of the oversight or initial review is actually specified as the executive committee. So now that we're changing and doing away with the term executive committee, we're going to need to go through and redline that entire policy and update it. Now, we were thinking we could suggest some alternatives now, but to I think what Paul is saying, like maybe just best let the committee rework
That'll
that.
take some time.
Yeah, because it's a
Yeah.
pretty lengthy policy.
But ultimately, I think the bottom line is that if there is a censorship on, or if there is a request for censorship, I do like the recommendation that the president would appoint an ad hoc committee.
Well, that was our suggestion because right now the way it reads is that it would be considered by the executive committee. But if the executive committee now no longer in theory exists, or at least not that term, then we need to have some alternative. But we can definitely take that into consideration as we look to now redo that policy to come back to us. But that was kind of our suggestion, is that it would make sense for the president to appoint an ad hoc. It would obviously couldn't include the person being, accused. It couldn't be the person making the recommendation. So it's, in all intents and purposes, the president would just appoint the other two members not involved, probably, because that would be all that would be left, most likely. But that was our thinking.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever's not involved,
Yeah.
then the president can
Yeah.
recommend the ad hoc. So, I agree with your, I don't
Thoughts?
think you need to come back to it. I think that I agree with the committee recommendation B, but I welcome the others.
Yeah, I mean, if everybody's good with that concept of a presidential ad hoc, we can definitely incorporate that as we now start to go through the rest of the policy to remove every executive committee or reference to it. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so we will move forward with B as we go back and redline that section. (16.3) Duties of the board president and vice president. So here we have a list of responsibilities of the president. We have a couple options of these are the duties of who? Of A, no change, meaning just the president. Duties of the president and the vice president, or duties of the president and the vice president in the absence of the president. Committee recommended C. And that's, again, just to cover if the president is absent, it's clear that the vice president would step in for these.
Yeah, and currently that particular section just, the header says president and vice president, but the actual language just said president, so we mainly just wanted to include that caveat in there.
So I agree with committee recommendation.
I also.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a continuation of that same section. We are looking specifically at F. So the responsibility to be the spokesperson for the board. And so we have two options. A is just leaving it alone as it is, or B, adding that the president or the vice president, in the absence of the president, will be the lead spokesperson for the board or appoint a designee. Just to give a little context, we added or appoint a designee in case the president feels like maybe there's another board member who is more knowledgeable about a specific topic and they want to appoint them as a spokesperson for a specific event.
Yeah, and one example we discussed was the work I've been doing on, like, say, the Groundwater Council. So, like, if there was ever a need for some kind of a statement or something on that, it might make sense if the president's like, well, why don't you comment on that since you're more knowledgeable? So that was one example that we kind of brought up. But again, we just thought that it might be good to have that flexibility.
So I agree with committee recommendation. Like, I know you mentioned that as an example. And just like, you know, you've been spearheading the language for the new bill.
Mm-hmm.
I full-heartedly would agree that you should be the one who speaks that legislation on behalf of it because you thought of it.
Yeah.
So that's where I would recommend that the board president takes a look at that and makes those kind of recommendations.
Yeah.
I think it's a given. I mean, no matter where we're at, whoever's the expert in the room, we just let them talk. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like Paula said, we're kind of, as we read through each section, we thought of little changes that might have been good, and this was one that, I mean, I agree, Kelvin, that it's like it would probably already have been a given to most people, but we just thought it might be a good edit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like we are in agreement. Thank you. 17.1, Director Education and Conferences. So that last sentence, we are recommending to strike it out. Director shall not attend conferences or training events when it is apparent that there is no significant benefit to the district. We are striking it out, but we're kind of just rewording it back into the paragraph on the next slide. So by adding which benefit the district. And at the end, we are recommending adding any educational conferences, seminars, trainings, and professional meetings outside of those listed on Schedule A will require board approval. That is already included in another section, but the committee just thought it would be good to reiterate that here. So they recommend incorporating these edits.
So I have a question regarding this section here. And this has come to the attention of getting new information that
Yes.
we've gotten regarding how much, you know, that we have a list that is of classes and what is it, educational and conferences, that anything listed in Schedule A that we should be allowed to go to without approval, which I completely agree. But that, you know, if there, that we should maybe look into it more in committee as to how much would make sense to be able to go into the Schedule A of meetings. Is it something that we're going to look at where it's any conference that we want to at any time, I mean, given without a budget? So it's just something that I want to look at because I do feel that we need to be fiscally responsible, and but I want to defer that to the committee so that they can look into it more.
Okay.
So that was actually on the next slide. We were going to talk about that. So, but thank you for bringing it up. So on the next slide, and I will go back to that slide after. The committee and staff, we were discussing including some type of financial oversight to board expenditures. At the time when we last reviewed this presentation, these were the options we were looking at. So having the finance review the board expenditures quarterly and making recommendations. And also another option was to consider adding individual budget limits for these trainings. Like Vice President Garcia just mentioned, additional information. We've had additional discussions with committee and everybody. We wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Well, and if I could just add in, I know Jose's been doing some really great work, and so yeah, we're going to be digging a little bit deeper into this particular section, but by and large, we saw Schedule A as, okay, these are the organizations that were pre-approved to, you know, participate in whatever it may be. Now, I think there are, good discussions that we could have on, do we want to set some limits within that? I think one of the challenges, and I've already been kind of talking ahead of our meeting for next week, is a lot of the things we attend are multi-purpose. So how do you differentiate something that's both, say, a conference, also there could be training embedded in that conference, and then there could also be maybe, say, a legislative component as well. So I think it's a little bit harder. Now, I think if you want to set a limit just for like standalone classes or trainings, we can look at that. But like I said, part of the dilemma we have is a lot of these functions serve 2 or 3 different things simultaneously. I mean, like, I think even BBK's taught classes at Aqua and other things. So it's like, how do you differentiate which bucket that would theoretically fall into? But I think a standalone class is something that might be a little bit more easier to set some kind of a limit if that's the board's wishes. But yeah, that's one of the things that we were kind of trying to figure out of, well, how do you shove a square peg into a round hole when it can be 3 or 4 different things simultaneously?
You chisel it.
Well, yeah.
So, and let me just say an opinion that I would recommend that that we have a separate bucket for advocacy and legislation trips, and not be part of the actual bucket of conferences and education.
Well, I mean, we can certainly look at that, but I think the challenge that we have is that we're often doing it at conferences, though, too. So even the conference that we just attended just earlier this week, it was a conference, but we were also doing advocacy, too. So again, it's like it could count either way. Now, if you want to have a separate budget just for advocacy trips, we can certainly look at that. But again, I think for us, the part that we're maybe going to have to maybe take a deeper look, if that's the board's wishes, is how do you put something that could in theory go in 2 or 3 places into just one?
Well, I think that that right there, again, we're participating in a lot of more things that require us to go to legislating and go for grants. I think that should be a completely whole bucket coming from a different fund, because that may require us to do more advocacy, and it shouldn't be part of whatever bucket we have for, if that's the direction we end up going.
Well, but let me ask you a question so I can take back to the committee. So would it be your desire that as a part of Schedule A, we also have a bucket within Schedule A for standalone advocacy trips?
I don't think that advocacy trips should be a part of a schedule. Not part of Schedule A, because it's not a conference or an education. We're doing advocacy.
No, I understand, but I think the part we're particularly talking about is that Schedule A, which is these are the organizations that everyone is pre-approved to participate in. So I just want to try to understand where you would like to see that.
Well, okay, so let me tell you where that stems from me, okay? When we're looking at the budgets in finance and we see no buckets for any of the educational conferences that board members are attending. It's not limited to anything. It's coming from somewhere that we don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from the admin, budget. advocacy should not be part of that. And so, in other words, if you go out there with legislation
Yeah.
to promote the bill for the district, it shouldn't be part of the expenses that you're going to accumulate for the conferences and educations that are listed in Schedule A.
Okay.
That's my recommendation, because
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
have any board member not be able to do advocacy for the agency and the district. And, you know, if you and Esteban decide to go up there, it's a whole different pot of money, you know?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple parts to it. I get what you're saying as far as making sure that we have, I think, money set aside for that, versus I think also the whole concept of Schedule A is that these are pre-approved activities. So, I mean, it sounds like you want to ensure that we have a budget available in case one or some of us need to as a board. But at least my understanding of how it's currently written, that wouldn't necessarily fall under Schedule A if it's a standalone trip. We as the board would still need to approve it. Not that we would probably say no to it. We most certainly would approve it, and then it's just a matter of covering it budgetarily. But yeah, I think we can certainly look at ensuring that there's a, for lack of a better term, a pot somewhere for that kind of activity. But again, like this was specifically talking about Schedule A activities.
So maybe it'll help if I forward a little bit to Schedule A.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do that.
yeah. And pass. There you go.
Yeah, so Schedule A, just a list of all the organizations which we intend for pre-approval. So if the board wants to attend events, conferences, seminars at any of these organizations, it would be pre-approved. If
Mhm.
I'm understanding correctly, Vice President Garcia, you're talking more about budget limits, correct? So not necessarily what's on this list, but having certain budgets for certain.
Okay, so if the board chooses to have a budget for an individual for Schedule A activities, that's one bucket. But there shouldn't be, we shouldn't be restrained to not be able to travel to Sacramento as an individual or individuals because we used up our money from Schedule A.
Oh, I think I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I think come up with an alternative that addresses that for consideration. If even for a multi-purpose meeting, you could theoretically say, well, half this trip was advocacy, half goes towards my aqua training budget. You know, it's just a bookkeeping exercise. That's one possible solution. But yeah, you're saying we don't have to choose between advocacy or getting some good training in.
Well, that kind of gets tricky because, you know, we went to DC, but it wasn't really, I didn't go to Aqua, so I
Yeah,
would
that was
assume.
probably all advocacy, and
Yeah.
you're saying that would be maybe nice to have a separate budget that wouldn't count against a
Correct.
training budget, for example.
Well, and as it is now, there currently is no limit for board members on these activities.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna continue this discussion.
Yeah,
And,
work on it next
and
week.
We have finance in the room, and I'm
We
gonna-
can definitely work on
Yeah,
it.
we're gonna ask for some more information on some things, because I think there's a way we can parse this out in a way that would make more sense on a budgetary standpoint and forecasting as well, where I think we can make everybody pretty happy and still have good accounting and transparency, so, okay.
Okay, so I am going to go back to where I was. Okay, so this one, I just want to make sure we were all in agreement with these changes to the language.
Let's go in here.
Do you guys need me to recap since we? Yes, recap. Okay, so we are removing that last sentence to basically replace it in that second column paragraph, adding that the board will will attend these events which benefit the district. And adding to the end of that the board can attend any conferences, seminars, trainings, on of that. I'm sorry, not that anything outside of Schedule A will require. We okay with that?
I'm okay with committee recommendation.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
okay.
So this next slide, we are gonna skip it. We already had some discussion about taking back information, so policy committee can put together some recommendations, and we will provide more information when that's available.
Mm.
Section 8.1, board member rights and privileges. So this is one example where executive committee was referenced, but the question here is who will review press releases? Used to be executive committee, so A is no change. I guess we can actually make A officers of the board,
Yeah.
or we can have B, president and vice president, which is essentially officers of the board. Or C, president and vice president, president or vice president in the absence of the president.
I would, on this one here, I recommend C, because I feel like it's redundant. If the board president reviews the press release, I don't think that the vice president needs to review it.
One thought which I would maybe add is, and this is, I'm just speaking from my own experience, I think it's good to have both just in case one or the other may not be, either one or could be unavailable for a certain amount of hours, in which case staff is still looking for some feedback on a potential press release. So I would still recommend having both.
Okay, so clarification, you're recommending B, so, but what you just said, if the president is available and has read it, why would you still want the vice president to review it?
Well, we always thought it was good practice to have them both involved in reviewing those, but I mean, if you would be more comfortable with C, I could live with that.
Good call. I got it.
I think C.
So I am hearing C.
See.
C, okay. Thank you. Still on 18.1, this was requested to allow for a polling of board members for a special meeting. So I'll start with B. We're recommending to add this new section that every director has a right to request the board secretary, general manager, or legal counsel conduct a poll of the board of directors to determine if there is a majority of the board of directors who wish to call for a special meeting. And of course, we added some additional language that we will do our best to make sure we try to accommodate for everyone's schedule to get everybody present at the special meeting. That is option B. Option A is no change. Essentially, we don't need this section in the policy, and that is a committee's recommendation.
So what does the policy say?
We currently don't have, there's governs how you call
Okay.
a special meeting.
Okay.
This is specifically to say that if one director wants to have a special meeting, there will be automatic direction for general manager or board secretary or a designee to poll the whole board to
Okay.
see if they want to meet.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. What does the law say about me requesting a special meeting?
I believe it is the president can call or a majority, but Mr. Castillo.
So under the Brown Act, a special meeting can be called by the general manager or the president of the board. The only public notification requirements is that there's a public notice 24 hours before that. Usually when there's a special meeting, I think the process that you guys currently have in place that's been working. I don't know if there's been some sort of problem or some sort of issue where a board member has wanted to call a special meeting and hasn't been able to. It doesn't seem like that has been an issue. I mean, we're at a special board meeting today. I think usually the general manager or the board secretary would check with everybody, make sure they're available, and make sure that you're all able to participate in
Okay,
the
so, but
special meeting.
So, thank you for that clarification. But I do think it needs to be spelled out of who calls for the votes. Who's the one that does, according to the law, who calls the votes of the boards wanting to have a special meeting?
So there's nothing in law that says, like, the Brown Act doesn't specify the board president or the general manager calls a special meeting. That's really, you guys use Rosenberg's Rules of Order. So then that's what would dictate is your rules of procedure on how a special meeting is called.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with that, so can you enlighten me?
Yeah, so usually under Rosenberg's Rules of Order, it would be the board president would call a special meeting and then provide direction to staff that there's a special meeting. The board secretary then would see if everybody's available. It's more of a rules of procedure and not law.
So at the end, the board, I forgot, what did you say, what did you say?
Rosenberg's.
Rosenberg.
Yes.
The board president should notifies the board secretary to take a poll? Is that the procedure?
So if I could, so by law, there is no poll that is required, so please correct me if I'm wrong. The president can call a special board meeting. This language that is proposed is in case someone besides the president wants to call a special board meeting, then we would rely on this to say, hey, John, please poll the board members to see if we have a quorum to call a special board meeting.
Well, and if I'd also point out that this particular request was to put it in as a board member right and privilege, which is a completely different section than our special board meeting section. I think if you wanted clarity on the process for calling a special board meeting, we can certainly take it back and look at it in that placement, because again, our concern was more that one, we didn't really feel that it needed to be an additional right or privilege, because we feel that the president, along with legal counsel and general manager, are fully capable of establishing if there truly is a quorum or not. Now, there was a situation where there was, I think, a momentary quorum until it was pointed out that legal counsel could not be present for the meeting that they wanted on a particular day and a particular time, that legal counsel was not available. So the quorum effectively evaporated. But I certainly have the utmost confidence that President Moore would take his responsibility as seriously as I took it that particular day. I know I talked to one board member probably 4 or 5 times to ensure that his stance that if not all parties could actually be there, that he no longer supported it. And I talked to John probably 4 or 5 times that day. I talked to legal 4 or 5 times that day, and I would imagine that President Moore, you would do the same thing if you were in that situation too. We just didn't feel that it really warranted being a special right per se. Now, again, if it's more the desire that we should have a more specified, laid out process by which other board members can call for a special, make sure that that aligns with the Brown Act, we can certainly take that back to the committee, but I would say it really needs to be a part of the special meeting section of the policies and procedures and not this particular section.
To me, it doesn't matter where in this board policy it goes, as long as we understand that there is a process for when an individual wants to request a special meeting, who does the polling and what's the process. Because it was my understanding at the time that it was that we did not have a quorum, and it wasn't based on availability of the attorney. If legal counsel is not available, I would think that legal counsel would get someone in his behalf. Would that not be what you would do?
Yes, that would be correct. So, I mean, when Jeff's not available, I'm usually here.
So I felt that the process was not transparent. And so therefore, I think that there should be a process for when an individual who is not the president wants a special meeting, that there is a poll done that is not done by the president, but by someone who is not part of the board.
Sounds like there's a request to maybe take another look at that in terms of another process.
I mean, we can take
Section.
a look at it. Again, I mean, again, if you're looking at for it as a process, again, I think that there's a
Let's go
different
ahead and
portion
take-
that
we're
makes
gonna
sense.
I'm sorry, what was
Revisit
that?
it.
Revisit it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on then.
I've heard from Director Jenkins. He will be here shortly.
Section 18.2A, compensation for meetings. So here, we are doing something similar as we did earlier in the manual. So, adding a reference to the ordinance that sets your compensation. So essentially, we will be removing the dollar amount as that changes annually. So just pointing to the reference, pointing to the ordinance. Additionally, we just reworded the meetings. They were a little out of order, so the text you see in red is just rewording it for clarity.
Mhm.
Committee recommended incorporating the edits.
I agree with committee recommendations.
I'm good.
Okay, sounds like we are all in agreement, so moving on. 18.2A, still on compensation for meetings. This is proposed new text to include meetings with general manager or their designee, aka staff, that would qualify for compensation. This is to follow current practice. Board members currently are compensated for meetings with a general manager and staff, but it is not clearly outlined in the policies. I would like to point out that we included language, I'll read it out loud, discuss matters related to the functions and operations of the district. That would be what the meetings are for. To ensure that the meetings are reasonable, necessary, and a benefit to the district. So I'll go through the options with you. Option A is to allow for meetings with the general manager or designee, like I said, to discuss matters related to the functions and operations of the district. Directors are encouraged to use discretion when requesting compensation for such meetings, meaning we are not setting a limit for how many of these meetings you can claim a month. Option B is meetings with general manager or designee to discuss matters related to the functions and operations of the district. We're adding some limitations here, up to 3 meetings a month for directors or 4 for officers, so the president or the vice president. And then we have option C, no compensation for meetings with the general manager or designee. So I know that's a mouthful, just to add a little bit more context. We want to be transparent with the public for what types of meetings you're compensated for. So we want to be transparent, we want to be accountable, and we want to be fiscally responsible. That's why we're adding specific language about what types of meetings you can claim with the general manager and or staff. Something to consider is the types of meetings that you're currently compensated for, such as, I know sometimes we claim the meetings with like the board secretary for a calendar check-in. So would those types of meetings will still be counted towards this? So just something to consider to give us direction as we move forward with processing your compensation reports.
Yeah, and in particular, to try to give staff some clarity on a limit of meetings. that's why we kind of came up with option B, because we figured most of the time, most of us are meeting with the general manager at least once a month, and then generally the board secretary once a month, and then, you know, if you need another one in there, you know, maybe you need to meet with Jose on a particular issue, you know, that could be your third meeting. And we opted for 4 with the officers just because you all are meeting with the general manager probably twice a month anyway. So we opted for a slightly higher tier for officers, but that was, again, just kind of what we came up with, because, again, like, this came from staff wanting clarity on what do we count as a meeting? Do we have a limit on meetings? Because right now, in theory, you could have all 10 of your meetings as internal meetings. Wouldn't recommend it, but in theory, there is no limitation on that right now. Now, even if we were to adopt option B, there's nothing to say that you couldn't still meet with staff. It wouldn't count for the compensation purposes. So we're just looking at setting some kind of a limit just for those compensation portion.
So, I think this is a great discussion here. We're currently working on the educational portion of, you know, our outreach, and these meetings can sometimes be very lengthy because we're talking with HR, and then we meet with the POGA team to talk about what outreach we're doing for educational.
But aren't those committee meetings?
No, they're sometimes special meetings.
Well, but a special meeting would still be covered as far as a special meeting of the committee. Like, this is more talking about individual meetings. So,
and so I don't want to nitpick a board member from having involvement with the district and doing what we want to do, you know, for the programs that, for example, that we're working on, like our PIT projects, like our educational workforce development that we're working on. So I personally don't want to limit. I want to keep it to A, because, you know, we are putting a lot of time in, a lot of side time on this. And so, you know, I want to be able to count that as a meeting. So I want to be able to keep it at A.
okay.
Any other thoughts?
Any other thoughts?
I mean, what do you guys think?
I'm gonna do my meetings anyway. I mean, I don't care about the compensation.
Yeah. But do you think we should have a limit or not on internal meetings?
On internal meetings?
Yeah. Just for the purpose of compensation, not to say that you couldn't meet.
No. I don't think about it that way. I just don't. I get
Well,
it.
again, this clarity from
Yeah.
us.
So,
So I think there's a great distinction between the meetings that Vice President Garcia was just mentioning, because I know a lot of times there are meetings about topics just as she was talking
Mhm.
about. So I do think those are meetings that you can be compensated for.
mhm.
If you guys decide to go with A, that will be our direction. My question is more, it relates more to, what about your calendar check-ins? Like, those sometimes are, you know, quick 5-minute phone calls. Should those be counted towards your meetings? So, like, is there a limit?
Okay, so if you're gonna mention, you brought up our with the board secretary, I agree that those are very quick.
Mhm.
Maybe once a month, you know, because we do talk with her several times
Mhm.
throughout the month, and those are quick. I do agree with that. But, you know, when we're sitting down and we're going over agendas and discussions with the POGA team before we go to legislative, you know, legislation, or doing with HR to talk about things, I mean, those take a while and take a lot of our time. I want to be compensated for my time. That's just where I stand. But for me to talk with board secretary, I agree with you on that.
But what if you drive in? Is it different then?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if I drove in here to meet with Kara or the board secretary, is that a different situation then versus a quick 5-minute phone call? I mean, like, this is the slippery slope that putting any kind of limit is always troublesome. But again, like, we were trying to figure out some middle ground to help staff on this one. But yeah, I mean, it's like, where do you draw the line? I mean, I would agree. I mean, if it's just a quick phone call, then that's one thing. Like, for example, we had board members in the past who literally would bill for compensation what was probably a 10-minute phone call to legal counsel, and they billed that as a meeting for the month. You know, so where do you draw the line, or do we just, as you say, just leave it as A and we just leave it mute, and we just don't really specify what it is, and we as directors just have to defend what we claim. I mean, I'm not trying to argue. I'm just saying, like, this is the dilemma we
I like
had.
I like the discussion, and I still go with A.
Yeah.
If you choose, as a board member, if you choose to put, 4 phone calls with the board secretary, then that's on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
Yeah.
it's all about ethics and what you think is best. I don't want to be nitpicking everybody, so I'm not going to do that.
Okay, so it sounds like A, and thank you for that. I think that will be helpful as we move forward with compensation reports.
I guess our conversations with board secretary are going to take longer now.
You guys just have to attend more meetings. Okay, more on compensation. This is an easy one. So we are removing this sentence at the end of this section. There shall be no compensation for attending meetings or performing other duties for district on the same day as board of directors meetings. That sentence just quite doesn't make sense, and it's not anywhere in the water code that I found. So we are recommending striking it, but instead adding a clarification. So if you look on option B on the next page, adding the water code that a meeting compensation is set per day. Therefore, regardless of the number of meetings attended on a given day, total daily compensation is limited to the amount as specified in our ordinance.
So I agree with committee recommendations.
Okay, so I don't hear disagreement, so thank you. 18.2B, outside meetings and events. So here we are recommending to add "and events" to the end of this section. Additionally, in that second column, we're adding a little bit of language to add some clarity here. So Scheduled A is a list of pre-approved outside meetings and events hosted by the organization listed that any director may attend, including all meetings, events, functions, seminars, trainings, and conferences. And again, that's just to add clarity because we have Aqua, so it's like, what exactly are we talking about? Well, we're talking about meetings, functions, seminars, etc. Committee recommends incorporating the edits.
I agree with committee recommendations.
Hearing no disagreement, moving on. So here we have Schedule A. We looked at it earlier, but now I want to point out the agencies that we were requested to include: California Municipal Utilities Agency, Inland Empire Utilities Agency / Metropolitan Water District, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, Urban Water Institute, and Water Education for Latino Leaders. Committee recommended incorporating these agencies.
I have a question, just for clarification. Is there anywhere in the policy that says, like, and the sphere of influence?
No.
Under community events, actually.
Well, yeah, community events it does.
Okay.
But yeah, but not on Schedule A.
Do we agree or have any comments?
I agree with the committee recommendation.
I also.
Let's go.
Okay. Okay, so still looking at outside meetings here. In our manual, we have Schedule A, B, C, D. We are recommending removing Schedule B, which is a list of our standing committees, because we already have standing committees in a whole other section, and they're not outside meetings. They're our internal meetings, so we just recommend striking it as a schedule.
Clean up.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm good.
Agree, committee
Agree.
recommendations.
Thank you. So because of that, just a note, we will have to go back and edit some references in the manual to what used to be C
It'll
or
now
what used to be B. Yeah.
Everything moves up.
Yes, everything moves up. Let's see. Okay, so now we are referring to Schedule C, which will probably now be B, community events. Currently, it says that Schedule C is a list of community events in which any director may attend with prior approval of the president. However, if they're on Schedule C, they're already pre-approved. So that's kind of redundant. You don't need pre-approval from the president if they're already pre-approved in the manual. So we are recommending to strike that language.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Thank you. We're almost there, okay? 18.5 mileage. So this is another one of those cleanup sections that we found. We currently do not reimburse board members for mileage for attending board meetings or committee meetings here at the district headquarters. However, I think this was something that I couldn't quite find when it was accidentally added the last update almost 2 years ago, a year and a half. It makes it seem like we do give you guys mileage for committee meetings. So we are recommending to clean up that language. So no mileage reimbursement for attending board or committee meetings here at headquarters. Of course, we gave you the option B to include those meetings for mileage reimbursement. However, committee recommended staying with our current practice of no mileage reimbursement.
I agree.
I agree with the recommendation.
Thank you. Monthly submittals of expense reports. So this section, we actually have quite a bit of language update, just for, to include more detail of what we require for submittal of your compensation and reimbursement reports. So if you want to take a minute to read the current language, and then I'll flip through the next page so you can read the proposed language.
And you'd say this basically follows our current practice?
Yes. So some important notes here. We included, the more detail on like receipts. We included that expense reports will be approved by you all and then forwarded to the general manager and finance for review to make sure they look correct. Currently, the president reviews members' compensation reports, and they've been combined with mileage reports, so we also included that language, with the exception that the vice president will review the president's. And additionally, we added, for transparency, that approval of director expenses for the preceding month will be included on the next available board meeting. All documents just a note that all documents record. So this was something we heard from the board that they would like more transparency with expense reports. So adding it on the agenda is a very common practice, so we included it here.
I agree with committee recommendations.
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you. Section 19.7, benefits deferred compensation. This is another cleanup edit. Last year, the board made a change to change our deferred compensation service provider from 2 to 1. So this is just reflecting that change. Do we agree?
I agree with committee recommendations.
Hearing no. Moving on, thank you. Okay, last two slide, code of ethics. So this section has to do with sexual harassment training. We are recommending, well, did I skip one? I think I skipped one on my pages. Our legal can provide more information on this if needed, but it is my understanding that effective January 2026, there is this new required training for board members, so we are just including it as the language for your required training.
Okay.
And we got this text from legal, so check.
Okay.
I agree with committee recommendations.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, this is the one for sexual harassment training. We are recommending striking section 20.3 because it is repetitive. This information is already in section 20.5, which is on the next slide. So we can approve both of these at once if you guys agree. We are removing it from 20.3 and editing 20.4 and 20.5 to just have it all in one place.
I agree.
I agree.
And that brings us to the end of this PowerPoint. Any questions or comments?
Any questions or?
I just want to thank you, Paula. I know you put in particularly a lot of hard work on this over the last several months, and I know at the policy committee we greatly appreciate it. We know you've been really busy, especially since Elvia left, but we do really appreciate all the hard work you put into this presentation and the work with the committee and the board.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for your hard work.
Thank you for all your hard work. Yeah.
Especially, the last part of the year, so thank you.
Thank you also, but I do want to just say one thing is, just a few weeks ago, we did receive, we were given the audit report that was served to the West Valley Water District. I just want to make sure that we cover some of the things that they thought that we needed to address, and that we can cover it in this policy by being transparent.
That's what we're meeting about next week.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because I want us to not get caught off guard again, and make sure that the things that we need to improve on or to address.
Yep.
We are going to come up
For
with
sure.
some proposals of how we can comply with what they referred us to.
And so I want to thank all of you for doing that and trying to keep us straight here.
Yeah. Special thanks to
sorry.
John, Jose, your team. Thank you.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Thanks to the board for your time.
Hold on a second.
I do have one more slide to go back to.
What? Your time is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Section 4.2, you guys don't have to go back to it right now if you don't want, but you did want to circle back to the reporting requirement of the general manager for absence. So do you guys want to talk about that now, or do you want to handle it another day?
I already said I would like to know when he's not here, but that's just mine.
So
Maybe.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we revisit this next week, see if there's some
We can
additional
talk more.
alternatives that address
Yeah.
all board members.
Okay, so
Okay.
we will bring this back another time.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Are there
you.
any questions? You have a motion to
All good.
accept and go?
Thank you.
Adjourn.